Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us today. I want to welcome those of you who are here in person, those of you who may be joining us online via Zoom. My name is Melissa McKenna, and I am the Assistant Director for Outreach and Adult Services here at Traverse Area District Library. And basically what that means is once you graduate from high school, my staff take care of your library needs, programs, services, the books and things that you'd all like to read, your magazines and that kind of thing. So if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see the library be doing, please let me know. I'd always love to hear from the community what things you'd like the library to be doing. I do want to talk very briefly about one thing that we are doing this year here at TADL, and that relates to our program this evening. So we are having a year-long 2026 Civics celebration in honor of America's 250th birthday that we're having this year. So every month of the year, we're focusing on a different area of government, civics, citizenship, community, that kind of thing. Our focus for March has been voting and elections. And so we've had several programs about voting and different areas of elections and finding out how things get onto a ballot, how our vote actually gets processed. And so this evening, we will be having another voting program. We'll be having Ranked Choice Voting Explained by Barb Smith from RankMIVote. And what I'd like to do is invite you all to pick up at the back of the room or at our kiosk next to our circulation desk, one of our bingo sheets. So there's a bingo sheet for adults and one for kids. And it has activities on here that we would all like people to participate in as an active citizenry. Is that a word? I think so. And so there are things on here like attend a library program, which you're all here doing this evening. You can mark that one off. We do have a free space for you. We're asking that you read the Constitution, look up who your representatives are. So all these different kinds of things. If you get one bingo, you can come up and see us at the desk, and we will give you one of our little swag pins, or you can get a water bottle with our same democracy logo on it. If you get two bingos, and we had our very first person get their second bingo this week, and they're going to get a t-shirt with the logo on it as well in their size. We'll make sure you get the right size. So please participate in our activities this year. Again, this is going on all the way through December. I see several of you in the room who have done programs for us or will be doing programs for us later this year. So thank you so much for that. And we hope to see you all here at the library. And now I'd like to turn this over to Barb Smith so she can go over ranked choice voting. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Melissa, and to all the staff here at the library. This is just such a great venue for our community. So welcome everyone here and on Zoom, and thank you for coming to this presentation on ranked choice voting. My name is Barb Smith. I live here in Traverse City, and I also am a volunteer for RankMIVote, which is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to promote and hopefully bring ranked choice voting to Michigan. I'm going to ask everyone to hold questions till the end. We also have some little index cards and pencils. You can wave our volunteers down and write them down, but this is such a small group too that we could also just take a question if need be. After the presentation, we'll stay over just a little bit, just for some casual conversation. And with that, let's get started on our presentation. So today, this is kind of the outline or the syllabus. And Melissa touched on it. Why do we talk about voting? How do we vote now? What is ranked choice voting? Really, that's what I'd like you to have a much better understanding of at the end of this presentation. We're going to try out a mock election, and we're going to kind of compare it to the way we vote now and look at what we think are some improvements. We'll touch on what's going on in Michigan and leave you with some resources for learning more. So why do we talk about voting, especially in this year? So I looked it up, and this is kind of spoke to me. The right to vote is essential to a well-functioning democracy, and it is the most enshrined right in our Constitution. Engaged citizens use their votes to share in decision making for our communities and our country, and that's pretty darn important. So we're going to talk more about it. So the current system, let's look where we are today, is called plurality or single choice voting, and we all are very familiar how we vote. We get a ballot, and at the end of the day, the person with the most votes wins. However, it was a surprise to me to learn well into my adult years that most votes doesn't mean most preferred, and it doesn't mean majority. Our current system has a big weakness in that it does not ensure a majority winner. It works pretty well if we're voting on a single issue. Are we going to raise the millage, yes or no? Or in two candidate races, where you can tell the person with the most votes does have the majority, but it does not work well when there's more than two choices, which is often the case. So take a minute and we ask people to, if you had to describe politics today in one word, could you think of one? Yeah. So Pew Research asked that across the political spectrum, and they got not really great words: divisive, corrupt, broken, polarized, chaotic. I always say if I was going to go to a restaurant and I pulled up the Yelp review and it had that many negatives, I would not go to that restaurant. I'd be quite concerned. So why? Why are people feeling that way? Something is not working. I come from a quality improvement background, and we always look at systems. Well, some of the problems with our current system is majorities get split. When more than two candidates run, and we'll go over that, the vote can be divided, and your community may end up with somebody winning with the most votes that the majority of the community does not prefer. That ends up with politicians in office that don't represent their community. And voters start to feel disenfranchised and they stay home. Why does it matter that the system has flaws? Well, 90% right now are feeling exhausted about politics. 80% believe we're in a political crisis. 63% are dissatisfied with the candidate choices, wishing maybe different ones would stand up to run, but you're going to split the vote. And 63% have little or no confidence in the current system. But we can make changes. So if we need a better system, one of the things that we should think about is ranked choice voting. It gives us a system where the whole community chooses their best candidates, and we know that because it requires they receive a majority to be elected. And we can vote our hopes, not our fears. You can go to the ballot and vote for who you truly want, not who you... I'm really afraid if I vote for candidate A, candidate C is getting in, so B gets my vote. So ranked choice voting is, we consider a simple upgrade, but many people have never heard of it. So we'd like to kind of give you some examples and go over how it works. Very quickly, it's nonpartisan, it's pro-voter, and pro-community. It is a majority-based system of electing. It's an election system where we require 50% plus at least one additional vote to win. You may hear it called by other names, including instant runoff or preferential voting, which is what it's called in Australia, who's used it for 100 years. One of the great advantages, it eliminates the damage done when a vote is split, where you feel like you're wasting your vote if you vote for your preference, and where candidates are elected with less than a majority. So now we've eliminated the split vote. More candidates are encouraged to run. They're no longer considered a spoiler. And we can all think back, like Bush, Gore, Nader, if you're that old. Nader was the spoiler. In the end, it elects officials that are more representative of their community and their community's values. And a great thing that I didn't realize would happen is that campaigns become more civil. Why? Because they talk about the issues. They know they need to convince more than half of their community that they have some good ideas. Attacking your candidate only is going to take you so far. It works for your base. It'll get you that 30, 35%, but most of us want to hear about issues. And they also know they have to reach out to you because maybe they're going to be your second choice, and that may come into play. So like we say, you get to vote your hopes, not your fears. And with that, voter satisfaction and turnout increases. So I'm going to show a short video. Hopefully the sound will be okay. It's about 2.5 minutes, and I think it's just a really quick overview to get us started.
So what is ranked choice voting? In most parts of the United States, voters select a single candidate for each position on their ballot, and the candidate with the most votes wins. This is known as single choice winner-take-all, which can sometimes result in the election of a candidate who earned only a small percentage of the vote, even when the majority of voters supported other candidates. But that's not the only way of electing our leaders. Ranked choice voting is another voting method which allows voters to rank their candidates in order of preference. In a ranked choice voting election, a candidate needs to earn more than half of the votes to win. All first choices are counted, and if a candidate has a majority, then they win, just like any other election. If not, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked that candidate as number one will have their votes count for their next choice. This process continues until a candidate earns a majority and is declared the winner. Let's look at an example. Here, you select orange as your first choice candidate, yellow as your second, pink as your third, and green as your final choice. The first choices are counted. Yellow earned 35%, orange 21%, pink earned 28%, and green earned 16% of the vote. Because nobody won more than 50%, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and voters who picked him as their first choice have their ballots count for their second choice. This continues until a candidate receives more than half of the votes, or 50% plus 1. So what are some of the benefits of ranked choice voting? Ranked choice voting provides more choices, allowing more than two candidates to compete without fear of splitting the vote among like-minded individuals. Sometimes voters feel pressured to vote for the lesser of two evils. Ranked choice voting allows people to vote for their favorite candidate, not just against the candidates they dislike. With ranked choice voting, we see more positive campaigns and less negative advertising. Candidates are encouraged to reach out to as many voters as possible, including those supporting their opponents. They can build a winning coalition with like-minded candidates to earn voters' second and third choices. It's time to fix our democracy and make our elections work better for everybody. We can do that with ranked choice voting. Visit www.fairvote.org to find out how you can get involved.
So that's just a very quick little overview, and we'll go into it a little bit deeper. Whoop, there we go. So what I'm going to do next is let you try a ranked choice voting election, and what we're going to do is elect the mayor of Candy Town. By the way, there's some candy on the back counter. That was the point of it. So this is going to give you, just show you how it would work. So we're going to elect the mayor of Candy Town, and it looks like we've got 5 candidates, which would really split up the vote. And you're going to go and say, well, what's your favorite? Well, I am Kit Kat all day long. You know, you can break them up, share them. My number one. After that, I think I really, really like chocolate. I think I'm going to go with the Heath Bar next, and then Butterfinger. But, you know, I just don't like Skittles, so I think I'm done ranking. And sometimes when you're filling out a ballot, you're going to get to like, nope, they're not getting my X. I cannot in any manner vote for that candidate. I've got nothing in common with them. You don't have to. You only rank those you have a preference for. And then we're going to submit that and take a look at how the election turned out. And this is an election we've been running for over a year. So you'll see there's a lot of votes. Okay, we're going to go back to round one. There we go. Okay, let's take a look at what we've got here in round one. You'll see that there is a 50% mark, and nobody's even close to it. And that's because there were so many candidates running. But right now, Skittles is ahead, then Kit Kat, Heath, Butterfinger, and Hershey's. But nobody is even close to that 50%. So we really don't know who is the most preferred candidate. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop the low vote getter. And I always say the candidate is out of the race. The voter is not out of the race, because your vote is going to transfer per your instructions to your second choice. So we'll go to round two. And what's happening, this is an instant runoff. It's just like we're holding a runoff election in the South. They do it like a month or two later. It's very expensive, but you don't have to go back in. You've already told us what your next choice is. Oh, look at this, Kit Kat's ahead. But we still do not have that majority identified. We run through round three. We're getting closer. Kit Kat's still doing pretty well. And surges across that finish line. So now we clearly know that more than 50% of the community prefers Kit Kat over that field. And that's what we want to see happen. It's essentially like 4 elections happening, except it's happening instantly. And that happens off of that grid ballot. So you don't have to go back. And we'll talk about that a little more. So we look at ranked choice voting and how we think it improves upon our current system of plurality. And the number one thing it does is eliminate that split vote and ensures a majority winner. We have a lot of primaries going on right now. We're looking ahead to Michigan's governor election with 3 people running. And the chances are probably pretty good. Whoever wins the governor's race will not have a majority. So let's look at it if we went to the Star Wars universe and ran a few elections. So remember, our current system oftentimes elects candidates that have not demonstrated a majority. But as I said before, it works pretty good in a 2-way race. So here's a 2-way. We've got Luke Skywalker against Darth Vader. And you can see 60% of the community really supports Luke. And he wins in a landslide, really. But what happens if the voter is given more choices? We're going to see where this split vote actually penalizes the voter for having more choices and creates spoiler effect. So Leah stands up because she wants to run. And we can see in this example, she's actually more popular than Luke. But she's going to be called the spoiler because look what happens. Darth Vader, with his same 40%, wins that election because of the split vote. We still have the same 60% of the community that do not prefer Darth Vader, but that's who's going to be their leader. So let's run it again with ranked choice voting. So now we're going to do this where we've got the 3 candidates again, and we can see Luke's got the 25%, Leah 35, Darth Vader 40. But the election's not over because we're going to go to round 2 of tabulation because we require a majority to win. And for the purposes of our example, we just assumed that if you voted for Luke, Leah would be your second choice because they had so much in common. And so round 2 of tabulation, those votes transfer to their second choice of Leah, and Leah wins. New York City recently started using ranked choice voting for their primaries, and a lot of people saw that in the most recent election. And what they saw was that representation on their city council became more equitable. So where you see the 2 circles, this is the New York City Council demographics before ranked choice voting and after ranked choice voting. And if you look at that one and compare it to the demographics of New York City, you can see it's a much closer match. And people feel better represented. Another way that ranked choice voting improves is that all voters have value and campaigns become more civil. Our current system of plurality polarizes candidates. They win by attacking their opponents, even if they're very similar in their political ideas. So with politicians, when they're playing that plurality game, you as a voter are either worth 1 vote to them or you're worthless. You have no value to them whatsoever. You're either with that candidate or against them. That's the way it's seen. In ranked choice voting, all voters have value because they know they might not be your first choice, but they still want to reach out to you to convince you that if your number 1 choice doesn't get enough votes, perhaps you would like to give them their second ranking, and that can make a difference in election. People can win off those second rankings. All voters have value. Fair Vote that we use that video from has a great website and does a lot of data collection. And you can see there's been a lot of research done. And they find that when ranked choice voting is used, candidates are using fewer negative words or they stay neutral. There's much less of that personal attack going on. If you look at a political, with maybe this is a spectrum where people stand on a spectrum of ideas, and what happens is the candidates that are closer together actually pull votes from each other. So you may have candidate A and candidate B that are very, very similar, but they're going to split that vote. They're going to pull votes from each other, and that may allow D to come in and win. I've got a couple comparison charts for you. We'll get to the chart in a minute. So voter turnout is seen to be 17% higher, which is a significant increase in voter turnout. That can change the results of an election. Why do they turn out? Because they feel like their vote counts. Not only their first choice, but their second choice may come into play. Many people live in districts that are safe for the party that is perhaps not their choice. And so they know they could vote their whole life in every election, perhaps in that safe district, and it would never make any difference. So after a while, they're like, why bother? My vote doesn't count. They've polled voters after this, and the majority of voters are satisfied with ranked choice voting and actually find it easy to use. So ranked choice voting, if we could bring it to our state, which we'd love to see, brings in many permanent improvements with just a short-term cost, which is largely education. So what it does is it eliminates the spoiler effect. Campaigns are more positive, encourages more candidates to run. Voters get to vote their conscience and their preference. It rewards candidates that have broad support in the community. and it's harder to game the system. With our single choice voting, you can just throw an extra candidate on the ballot and split a vote, and that might be all it takes to win. Voters find it easy to understand. It does require education, and that's part of how you implement it. It's not lower cost to, I guess it's a lower cost to do what we've always done, but really the only cost involved is educating the voters and the clerks, and then a software upgrade. Our tabulators are fully capable of handling ranked choice voting already with just a simple software upgrade, and they're due for that in 28. You can hand count them. It's not really, it doesn't slow things down. Round one of tabulation takes just the same as our elections take now to get a total. Once those go through the tabulator and the results are sent to the Secretary of State, it's a push of a button to do round 2, round 3, round 4. So it doesn't really hold up your results. So there's some benefits, and we see that ranked choice voting ensures the majority winner where single choice does not, and the actual runoff elections does not. Oh, it does. So wait, there's several states in the Southeast, Georgia, a lot of them's Texas, and you've seen this. They require a majority to win, but they don't lay in an instant runoff. So they hold special runoff elections a month or 2 later. So John Ossoff was elected in Georgia at a special runoff. Texas has got some special runoffs. Those are very costly and quite a delay. The only one that eliminates vote splitting is ranked choice voting. The only one that increases civility is ranked choice voting. So I hope that helped you understand just a little bit more about ranked choice. And let's take a look at where it's used. In the United States, there's 2 states that use it statewide, and that's Alaska and Maine. There's several states where it's used in 1 or more cities. New York City uses it, San Francisco. And if you look at the states, they're kind of all over the political spectrum. Utah uses it, Virginia uses it. In the light blue down in the Southeast, these are a lot of the states that do require a majority to win, so they allow their military and overseas voters to use ranked choice voting because that ballot going back and forth takes a lot of time, but they don't let their voters on the ground use it. It's also used across the world. Australia and Ireland have both used ranked choice voting for over 100 years. And interestingly enough, Ireland hand counts. They like to hand count. It works for them. They've always done it. It works. Academy Awards that we just had, Best Picture is chosen by ranked choice voting. And every time you see the major sports awards like the Heisman Trophy, Cy Young, the MVP, in the teams, that's ranked choice voting. That's how you take a big field and find out the most preferred out of that field. So what about us? What about Michigan? Well, I work with a grassroots organization called RankMIVote. As I said, it's nonpartisan, we're nonprofit. And our organization has helped 5 cities in Michigan vote in ranked choice voting. So there's 5 cities that have held elections and their voters said, yeah, we like this idea. We'd like to implement it. Unfortunately, they've not been allowed to because you have to reformat the ballot to allow that grid, to allow the ranking. And so the voters have voted it in, they're not using it. So right now, we're encouraging legislators to look at that and say, can you commit to at least helping the cities that have asked for it and voted it in to use it, and then we'll get back to statewide. So right now we're doing a lot of outreach, education, that legislative advocacy is trying to encourage them to let cities make that choice for themselves. We'd like to encourage people to use ranked choice voting in simple ways and fun ways. If you've got a book club that you go to and you can't decide, you've got 4 choices of a book, you can run a ranked choice voting election and narrow it down to find the one most preferred. And we had a petition drive, but it's on hold right now. We needed to gather about 500,000 signatures in 6 months, and we're unsuccessful at that, but we haven't given up. So we're going to keep educating, and we'll come back to that. My best guess is next April, we'll go for a relaunch. And we tried to keep it fairly simple. We were still going to have partisan primaries. We weren't going to do it at every election. We were going to start with the top of the ballot, single races, Secretary of State, Attorney General, Governor, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, and President. Just start small. When you get down grassroots, that's going to have to be a decision for localities to make on their own because there's a lot of cross-districting. It gets quite complex. But anyway, that's on hold. So now I'm going to go one more time through the deck, and we'll go, what is the problems that have been seen with single choice voting? Non-majority winners, vote splitting, negativity, and voter apathy. We've got the effect of a wasted vote, people feeling like they have to vote lesser of 2 evils, and extra candidates being called spoilers. We think ranked choice voting will solve a lot of that by requiring that majority win, allow us more candidates to stand up. We have more choices as a voter, and we can more fully express our preferences. More candidates, more ideas, and hey, what a great idea, more civility. We all know we want to bring that temperature down out there. To learn more, we've got flyers here, QR codes. Our website is RankMIVote.org. You can use those QR codes, sign up for a newsletter, volunteer, donate. I really recommend fairvote.org, and that's really a good one if you're really into data and research, but lots of great articles too. Try it out yourself. There's a website called RCV, Ranked Choice Voting, 123.org, and it's free. You can set up your own little election, use it for group decisions, club elections, or whatever you want. And then we're going to try and do some fun events around town, so keep your eye out for that. Probably the first one we're going to try is Rank My Beer. And we're hoping to get a date set at the workshop and have a flight available for beers, and we'll run a little ranked choice voting, and in 2 hours see what was the most preferred out of those beers. I mean, let's have some fun with it. Oh yeah, we could do scotch. I'm doing one on cookies. It's all good. Were there any questions?
I'm really confused now because maybe I misunderstood you, but are we talking about ranked choice voting primaries as well as the general election, or just the general?
So the question is, are we considering ranked choice voting for primaries or just the general election? So tonight, really, we're focused on just what is ranked choice voting. I kind of talked a little bit about a petition drive that's on hold, and if that is restarted next year in the same format, it would be both primary and general. And you'll see it done differently in different states. What we thought worked good for Michigan and what we would recommend on a relaunch is to hold to our partisan primaries, but within those, use ranked choice voting. So right now we've got, I think 3 people running to represent Michigan as a senator because Gary Peters is retiring. So you got 3 strong candidates. Wouldn't it be nice to send to the general election the one that's most preferred, not the one with the most, but because they're going to face up against other candidates in the general. Virginia, when they went to ranked choice voting in their primaries, found they did very well in the general because they weren't sending a candidate with the most votes. They were sending the most preferred by their own people. And so they really carried them through into the general. So it's done different ways, different people, different places. Next question. Yeah, I would. So the comment was it's a shame it's not being used for the governor race. And anytime you've got more than two running, I think that myself, I would prefer to have it sorted out with ranked choice voting. Yes, sir. 50% of the votes. So if say 1,000 votes were cast, the 50% line would be 500. What's that? Yeah, so it's half of the votes. No, it's the total votes cast in that election. Yeah, so that was just commenting about how the votes roll over. So if your number one ranking was the least preferred candidate in the field, somebody has to drop in that instant runoff. And so it would be the least preferred candidate drops, but the vote does not go inactive. It transfers to the second choice. The question is, would you be able to split parties? Now, every place that uses it's going to have a different rule, but in a general election, sure. If you stay in Michigan, remember we vote in our primary, we have a partisan ballot. So you're going to sort. If you decide I'm going to vote on the Democratic side or the Republican, you're going to rank within that. Some states don't have partisan primaries. In the general election, you're able to, not in Michigan, not in Michigan. And I don't have any control over Michigan. Yeah. Independents would appear on the ballot at the general election as they do now. But what's interesting is that the voters that maybe really wanted to vote for that independent in some situations now will feel free to do so. Where when you're voting against what you're afraid of, you don't want to waste your vote. So it would be quite interesting when you take away that fear factor and you can vote your conscience but not waste your vote, because if that independent ends up being the lowest vote getter, your vote would still be in play. It would transfer, but you're going to see people feel more free to vote their preference. So the question is, how do the votes get distributed when you've got someone that's being dropped out? And what it is, so say candidate D gets dropped. Everybody that had candidate D as their number one ranking, their ballots their vote is going to transfer to each voter's second ranking. So maybe candidate D, for example, had 10 votes, and 3 of them transferred to candidate C, and 3 to candidate B, and 1 to candidate A. But it's as the voter specified. It goes to their next ranked candidate. Always the voter's choice. Yep. Yep, it happens as part of instant runoff, and that would be the software upgrade would handle that. I think there was a question in the back. Is it possible for the candidates to be in the same party? In some states, yes. Not in Michigan, because we've got the partisan, you're always going to have Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green, Libertarian, that kind of thing. I guess if a bunch, I don't know the rules for like if you're a Libertarian, can more than one run? No, I got a head shake no. Now, in other states where they have open primaries, yes, the answer is yes, because they might have multiple Democrats running, and some places don't even identify the candidates by party, so you wouldn't know. Yep. So open primaries is a different thing. Those are separate things. And Voters Not Politicians did a really good job at having an independent redistricting, which I think is a great thing, which did a lot to eliminate the issue of gerrymandering. So it's a separate issue, though. Good question. I'll throw this up there. It's got again, our website for RankMIVote and QR code. I do encourage you to pick up flyers. It's got website and QR codes on those. I think it's important to say, what did you walk away? Do you understand it any better? I'm going to stay around, and there's volunteers here for just some casual chit chat. Sometimes it's even easier to get a question answered at that time. But I want to thank you again for coming. Thanks to everybody on the Zoom, and thanks to the library staff. And everybody have a good evening.